lot in this past year. Okay, you can start. Like,
Okay, I'll share the screen.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I will mainly talk about the application process in EU, no, in UK because that's where I mainly applied. And Kirti and Ajay will give you some tips about how to apply in the rest of Europe. And we will start off with giving you a brief introduction of how to apply or how to search for the PI and what the entire process is like. And please try to ask as many questions as you can. You can directly like stop us at any point and ask us the questions, or you can just type out your questions in the chat box. Anything works. And see, this session is mainly for you people, for us to address your questions. So don't hesitate in asking questions. Like, no matter how silly you might think it still is a valid question. So please do ask us questions. And we'll just start off with a brief introduction and then you can ask whatever you want to. So I will first Kirti and Ajay will talk briefly about the EU part, and then I will or like talk about the UK part.
Hello everyone. So myself Kirti. I'll talk about mainly the European countries like Germany, France, and Spain, and all these countries. So firstly, the procedure for the PhD applications is in Europe. So like the first step is like select a topic or look for the research groups of your interest. Also it is possible that like you are not having a particular research in a like particular field, so like go for the do read some papers, research journals, so you will get some idea like where you want to work for, and then select the like make a list of the professors or the research groups you are interested, like a Excel sheet or something. So like you will be get to know like where to when to put the reminder and when to uh, send the mail. And so there are two application procedure, two ways. So first is through direct mail. So you can directly contact the professors or like the university. Or second method is apply to the graduate schools or via scholarship program. So mostly in Germany, I guess Max Planck are there, so you can directly apply through the program. And in Switzerland, EPFL, ETH, all they do have the programs that you have to apply. And other than that, all the direct mails should work. And next step is that you will get the interview call for if you are selected or if they want to know more about your research interest and more about like they want to know about you. So now Shraddha will talk about what happens in the UK side.
Yeah, so the 3 points that are listed here are pretty much the same for UK also. But the difference is that, okay, in UK also, I'm mainly talking about Cambridge and Oxford because these are the two universities where I applied. But I think the process would pretty much be the same for the other universities as well. So what you do is first, of course, you need to find the group that you're interested in, and you need to see which field the professor of that group works in, and you need to submit an application. So Cambridge and Oxford require applications to be submitted, and if you want, you can send an email to the faculty also, and that is usually preferable. I mean, like, there's no harm in sending emails. They would at least know that you are interested in joining their lab, and then they would direct you to submitting the application through their portal, or they could even tell you about some scholarship programs that you could apply for. So the asterisk mark that you see is because there are programs known as DTPs, that's doctoral training programs. This is like, so these are usually funded, and like you can see the link here, this is the link that I provided for Cambridge. So there are a lot of courses, like how we just have physics, math, chemistry, and bio. You wouldn't just have such like these specific courses itself. You could have a lot of other interdisciplinary courses which could be specific to the field of your interest. Like, one program that I applied to is the MRS plus PhD program in nanoscience and nanotechnology. And this doesn't like specifically apply to just chemistry. Like, if your work is related to like nanobiology or something like that also, it like covers all those fields. So it's an interdisciplinary program. And you need to extensively search for which program applies for you, applies to you, because these wouldn't like you won't like naturally be aware of them, because even I didn't really know such a program existed. It's only when I looked up their website, went through all the programs, that's when I came across this, and I found it to be a perfect like fit to my like interest. And so usually these ones are funded, but in UK the one of the major concerns is scholarships or the funding. That's because when you submit an application, you submit it to the department, which just like could guarantee you an admission, but it doesn't guarantee you funding. And you either need to apply separately for funding, or there are certain scholarships that you are automatically considered for, but the results of those are declared at a later stage. So we'll talk about scholarships in more detail later on. And of course, if your application goes through, then you have an interview call. You first have an interview with the faculty you're interested to work with, and then with the department. But this could vary based on the program that you apply for. So if you want to know like in detail about any of these 3 points, you can either ask me, Kirti, or Ajay at the end. We can maybe further elaborate on them.
Yeah, so I would like to add one more point in this. So in Germany, recently they have started this group training, research training groups. So like multiple faculties from different universities collaborate and they work on a single problem. So in that field, in that project, like math, chemistry, and bio, like different majors are like different major students are used. So like they do research on different things and they are collaborated through a program or something. So the next the requirements for the PhD applications. So like while you are applying or uh, sending a mail to professor, so what should be the content of the email and what should be the attachment that you should send to the professor. So first thing is like in the mail you should like clearly address what is your research interest, and like you should match it with the research interest of the professor. So in Germany or in the European countries, mostly the projects are like project like these PhD positions are project oriented. So you should clear like you should match or like give a clear idea like where you want to work, or like even if a brief thing should also work. And for the like other contents, like you should mention your research and like research experience previously in the different universities if you have any. And other than that, like you should include CV that should be like maximum of 2 pages, including your academic academics and the research interest and the research experience, your co-curricular activities, and also add your like the referees that are willing to send recommendation letters, and add the academic transcript, a motivation letter or a cover letter, and a research summary of your previous research works that you have done so far, or a statement of purpose. So I guess this is this is also the same in the UK, or maybe Shraddha can add more to it.
Yeah, the process is pretty much the same. Just a few things that I would like to emphasize here is, since in Europe in general, projects are actually more like the PhDs are more project based. Okay, so don't think if your CPI is not really good that you don't stand a chance, because they care about experience more than anything else over there, because you're directly joining the lab to work on a project. So if you have the prerequisites or you have a great background in that, that's definitely much better than like having a great CPI. And like don't hesitate in applying in departments which aren't like the traditional ones, in the sense like I'm a chemistry majors, but in Oxford I applied to the condensed matter physics department because the professor under whom I wanted to work like is in that department. So like I didn't have any option, and I still got an interview call. I still got selected. So don't like hesitate in applying to the non-conventional departments which you think would not be like would not choose you or something like that, because there is nothing like that. And when you write your statement of purpose, make sure that you make it like personal, in the sense that there is some story of your own to tell. Everyone, like they would have read a lot of statement of purpose which say that we want to do a PhD because we like science or we find it really interesting or something like that, but you need to make your SOP different in a way that like which tells your story, or how it like what your path was which led on to your interest in doing a PhD. So that is what would probably make you stand out. And yeah, the rest of the things are pretty much the same.
There's a question in the chat. Are motivation letter and the cover letter different? So,
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
are the motivation letter and the cover letter different things, or are they the same?
Yeah, it's different, right?
Yeah, motivation letters like why you are motivated for this particular PhD and why do you want to apply for this particular university. So like motivation behind applying for particular PhD, and cover letter includes the research interest and all these things like your research experience so far and all. if I'm not
Cover
correct.
letter, I
Like,
guess, usually gives an at a slight glance. It gives an overview of what you are expecting. So cover letter is usually for the professor to easily assess you without needing to go through your SOP at the first place. So it gives an short glance on whatever you have done and what you want to do. So the number of words in which you would be summarizing yourself would be lower as compared to when you're writing an SOP. And motivation letter, I guess, would be much more elaborate. I guess. Am I wrong, Shraddha? I guess motivation letter would be much more longer. I guess as
UK doesn't
compared
have
to
motivation and cover letters,
and
so
cover
like
letter.
I don't know. Man.
Acha. So usually when they ask for motivation letter, when I applied, they were expecting it to be bit longer than cover letter, and they usually used to ask me to attach motivation letter with cover letter. So I guess it's something that is separate, and I used to always think motivation letter would to be something more similar to an SOP, with
yeah.
little
So
bit of more stuff added to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like said in the chat box, the cover letter is like the body of the email. That's true.
so so when
Can you
should
can you
we
can you
start
go to the
applying for
previous
the
slide?
PhD?
I mean,
Hello.
yeah. So I mean, I just wanted to say. So you have a remark at the bottom that send as many emails as you can. So I mean, can all of you, I mean, just give some numbers? I mean, in terms of probability, how many emails do you write and how many replies do you expect? Because I've seen, I think people getting discouraged after only writing 1 or 2 emails. So I mean, what is the probability that you
So
will extract a reply? Just some numbers.
So it is possible that you will get a PhD, like you will get a good response even after 5 emails, or it is also possible that you will get after 150 or 200 emails. Like both are possible. So you should like really encourage yourself to like write as many emails as you can. So myself also like I send almost 100 or 150 emails. And after that I started getting positive responses. Before that I don't think professors would even reply.
See, I guess that depends upon when you are applying, when you are writing in mail, and it also depends upon what topics you are writing to. If you are narrowing down the exact field which is closer to your previous experience and what you want to do at the beginning itself, and you're applying towards September, November, when they're expecting people to come for the winter semester, uh, they'll be much more active, I guess, towards that part. For in my case, I guess the time in which I applied was around September, November. And right now, I've noticed that there are more ads that are coming out around this time because there will be a new semester that will be opening up soon. So
Yeah,
that
so it's
is,
the summer time going on in the Europe. So
yeah. So
basically, all the universities and all are like closed. So they'll start a new semester through like beginning of the September.
yeah, so they'll be actively looking at this applications that are coming in, or they'll be advertising the positions in their group much more actively in this particular time.
So
And
yeah, like
see, if you are,
uh,
uh,
yeah. So
yeah,
I
like
just started
the
in like
way in
September
which
or
applying
October.
was
I
good.
started a little late, so maybe that's the reason that I didn't get any responses in the first place.
Yeah, and I guess the field at which you are applying at the beginning also matters. If you are sending mails to people which have tastes which are more similar to what you have already experienced, you will have much more better chance of getting a reply. And if it is much more further away from your field, you will have lesser chance. So we can't exactly say what would be the number of mails that we have to send, but we can anyway pinpoint some of the factors that may depend and that we have to look at before planning on sending mails.
So yeah, like every research group have this vacancy or open position link for their groups, and like you'll get the things that you need to send in an email. So make sure that you attach all the documents that they are asking. So like
Another thing that I just want to
yeah.
add is when you're sending emails, if you don't get a reply, send a reminder email. So like maybe like after a week or after 2 weeks, you can send reminder emails, and usually there's a greater probability that they reply to your reminder email than to the first email. So don't hesitate in sending reminder emails.
Yeah, I can watch on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, after 2 weeks, but try to make sure that you're giving them some time to respond. Just like Shraddha said, 2 weeks. Don't try to send a
Yeah.
reminder after 3 days or 1 week. Otherwise, they might feel that you're impatient enough to do a PhD. So yeah.
There's questions in the chat, so I will read them out. Shaunak asks, do we need to send all the documents you mentioned in the first email to them?
So you should always attach your CV and academic transcript. Motivation letter is like usually it is mentioned on their website if they want one or like they don't want. So when you will go and look at the research groups, you will get to know like what is the thing that they are asking for. And recommendation letters are not necessary in the first year. Like when you are applying for the program in that particular university, then you will need one. Initially, it's just the CV, academic transcripts, and the like motivation letter or cover letter.
Okay, just Ishita asks, should we attach the cover letter separately or write that in the body of the email? Um,
Uh,
I think you answered.
Shashank, I can't hear you.
Oh, so Ishita asked, should we attach the cover letter separately or do you have to write that in the body of the email itself? What's
No,
your
you should attach it separately with the email, like a PDF of the cover letter.
Okay, sounds good. Praveen asked, is TOEFL/GRE not at all required in Europe? Short
GRE is
question.
not at all required in Europe. Like in most of the like Germany, Spain, and France, they don't need GRE. But like TOEFL is required at some places. At some places that your all the degrees should work. Like it is not GRE is not at all necessary.
So if you go to Dean Acad office, tell them to give a certificate telling that
Yeah,
your
English
coursework
proficiency
is on
certificate.
English. So all your BSc and MSc studies are taking place in English. That would be enough because I haven't given an TOEFL test or an GRE test. And most places that I applied to were places where they didn't require it. So yeah, there are places, but if you give TOEFL, the plus point is that you have a lot of places to which you can apply. So instead of restricting yourself to an few options, you can uh, go on to apply to places that you may like. You like stuff that they do might feel interesting to you later on. So don't miss that chance if you haven't written TOEFL. So I'll suggest you to anyway go on, try to get your TOEFL scores in the first half of your 5th year, so that you can easily apply for all the positions that comes up.
Yeah, for Cambridge and Oxford, most
Shraddha,
probably it will be required. Yeah. So GRE is not at all
okay, yeah,
required
I
in
was asking
Europe.
the same.
But in Oxford, I remember I had given my TOEFL scores, and but like if you know how TOEFL works, you usually need to send the score directly from ETS, and there's a fee for that. But for Oxford, at least I didn't have to submit it like officially from them. I just had to fill up my score and attach the like scorecard myself during the application process.
Yeah, and just to add, Cambridge has pretty high expectations of TOEFL scores, perhaps the highest I ever saw anywhere in the world.
So like
Okay, we
But
can go
again,
ahead.
I think that depends on the department also. So maybe you can check that. Yeah. Like, of course, it is really high, but maybe it like varies a bit.
So like there are
Another
many
advice would
other
just be,
universities in UK also, like UCL, like University College of London, Imperial College of London, and many other universities. So like uh, don't try to fix in a particular like in the like be varied or like choose the universities from like low to like high rank. So like don't be set on like the top universities only.
Yeah, like Kirti is
To
right.
suggest.
I mean, the like it is better to apply to as many places as you can, especially if you find people of your interest over there, because you are going to be working in that particular group, and like you're not going to be doing much with the university as such. So you should like the PI and their research more than anything else.
Yeah, so when to start applying for PhD in Europe? So like you can start from this September onward. Like in August, you can sit down and make a good list of the research groups and the PIs like that you want to work with, and then start sending emails like from September or in October. Like October is pretty late, but like in September you should be start like sending mails. And for the fellowships, like they do have a particular deadline. So like many of the DARD and I guess Excellence Scholarship, they do have deadlines in the November or in the October. So do check for them. And for the like UK, like Shraddha will tell about the UK one. And there is no application fees for most of the universities in Europe. So like you don't need to pay for an application fees. It's like after the interview process or after you are selected, then you have to apply for the program. Then you have to apply to the particular department. Before then that you don't need to pay anything.
Yeah, so for UK, mostly since it's through applications, they have a deadline. So you have something known as a funding deadline, which means if you want to be funded, you need to apply by that deadline, which is either December 2021 this time or like Jan 2022. But if you don't want funding, the application process is open usually till March, so you can like submit the forms after that also. But of course, we would want to be funded, so you should plan to submit your application by December or January. And usually they do have an application fees, like universities do have a fee.
And some of the universities in Switzerland, like ETH or EPFL, they do also have their application fees. So these are some of the links for the open PhD positions or like vacancies. So these are some of the links. So they do post all the open positions and vacancies that are in like every major or every subject. So these are the links that I have used in like selecting for a PhD position. And there are like many important social media sources. So Twitter works like very best for finding a PhD position in your like in your research area. So just follow the hashtags in the Twitter and like you'll get to know like they professors nowadays do post online that if they have a open PhD position or they want new students even for the PhD and the postdoc they post for both of them. And in the LinkedIn also I guess it works the same.
Yeah, these are some really great resources. And LinkedIn also, like if you like follow people or follow certain organizations, you will get a lot of open PhD positions. So you just need to like search which one applies to you and then like look into their process.
And these are some of the scholarships. So first two are for mainly for the Europe, like DARD is for Germany, and Swiss Excellence Scholarship is mainly for Switzerland, universities in Switzerland, and rest are for the UK.
Yeah, so like UK has a major problem of funding. You should know this because even if you get admitted, you will still not know whether you're going to be funded or not, and that's what like makes most of the students not join UK universities. So from three, okay, there's something wrong with the serial number, but anyways, from three downwards, all the names that I mentioned are places or like are programs that you can apply to, and you can just check up their website. So just a simple Google search will give you like the entire detail about each of these scholarships. What you can see written over here is department and college-based scholarships, industries, and DTPs. Basically, is that okay? So Cambridge and Oxford have colleges which are a part of them. Like there are a lot of colleges. So when you apply, you are admitted into a particular college, and colleges also have scholarships of their own. Like there's something like there's Trinity College, there's St. John's College, and a lot of others like that. So you can look into the website of each of these colleges and see if they have separate funding programs of their own and apply through that as well. Or there could be industry tie-ups as well, which like maybe like if there's a person who you know you want to work with, they could be associated with industries who could fund your PhD. And like I mentioned about DTPs before, they usually have industry funding or some other funding sources, so they usually come funded. And for Cambridge and Oxford, I've mentioned the two links, which could actually like it's an extensive database where you can select like the country you're from, the program that you're applying to, and all of that, and then you'll get a list of scholarships that are applicable to you. So please make sure that you know when the deadlines of all of these are, so that you can apply well within that. And the last two are also specific to Cambridge and Oxford, but the first few are like in general applicable to any university in the UK.
So there is one more fellowship. I forgot to like mention it in this. So there is this APSRC fellowship. It's particularly for UCL, University College London, And also like scholarship is the one of the like most important part in the UK. I also get a response saying that they will give me a stipend, but that was not enough because I had to pay a registration fees also. So that would either cover my like living expenses, the stipend would cover my living expenses or the registration fees. So scholarship is really necessary for UK. So like you can contact any of us for the UK or like Europe applications. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yes, so we are up for questions now. So Abhijit asks, is the admission offer letter required to apply for scholarships, or can you do that separately?
Yeah, that depends on the program. So there were a few which you need to be admitted into the university first to be able to apply for the scholarship, but there are a few others that like given like it's a conditional offer. Like they would offer you the scholarship, but it's based on the condition that you get admission into the university. So yeah, you need to like check for each of the scholarships separately. And like Kirti also mentioned, in the UK, even though I mainly spoke about Cambridge and Oxford, there are a lot of other amazing universities like UCL is University College of London. There's University of Sheffield. There's Imperial College of London. All of these are like great universities. So you should like, and apart from UK, also Europe, also like the rest of Europe has some amazing professors and faculties. So make your search really good. Like see what you're interested in, what appeals to you, and based on that, apply to those places.
Shaunak
Yeah,
asks,
thanks,
what?
Shaunak, asking for that question because we wanted someone to ask that. So maybe
Yeah,
Kirti can first
most
talk
important
about
question.
the Europe part, and then I
So,
can talk about it.
so yeah, what happens exactly in my interviews? So like firstly they will introduce themselves and like they'll tell you about like introduce yourself and tell us about more about yourself. And maybe you can do this with a research experience presentation. So be prepared. So even if they ask or they don't ask, you should prepare a research experience presentation. Not more than like 10 to 15 slides or maybe less than that should work. So you can present your work and like tell them about yourself. And after that, they'll ask questions from your research experience, or like they'll ask the general questions like why are you interested in our group, and why do you want to apply for this particular position, or why do you want to work with us, and like what are the strengths and weaknesses and all these general questions.
And Shraddha,
Ajay,
maybe.
wait, no, Ajay can also talk about his elaborate
Yeah.
interview.
Hi. So in my case, actually, there were two sets of interviews that happened. So this is for Germany. So initially there was an interview that happened with the entire lab. So the professor as well as the lab members, after the interview, would go on to ask questions with us. Then they would have. In my case, there was two different sessions with PhDs from the same group. So they were presenting their work to me, and I was supposed to interact with them so that they can say whether I am having certain taste in that particular field or not. So after this particular interview got over, the professor was discussing the possible research topics that I could do by looking at what work I have already done and what he is planning to do in the future. So once this interview is done, he told me to wait for some weeks so that he can discuss with his lab members and other associates in his group. So after this got over, when I got a reply back, he wanted me to give a second set of interview to the department. The department head, chemistry department head, took an interview where that was a very small interview of 20 minutes. He basically wanted to see my taste in science and my language skills. So this is the only interview that I have given actually. So this is the only experience that I have to share with you guys. Apart from this, all other stuff that I have done usually took place over mail. So they were looking at my cover letter, and they were looking at the research experience that I had through the application that they have sent. Uh, so yeah, actually, I guess the applications that you send before the interview, they the stuff that you write matter a lot. So I often I felt that by looking at what I have presented myself in the letter beforehand, they had actually uh, decided a lot of stuff before even meeting me. So when they were talking to me, I could feel that. So while you're writing an mail, make sure that your language is good. Make sure to show your cover letter and SOP to your lab members, someone who is much more experienced, certain PhDs in your group, so that the first impression that you create in front of the faculty would be really nice. So yeah, that's what I have to say. And now I guess Shraddha can give much more better updates.
Okay, so one of my interviews in that first I wasn't really interviewed. It was more like an interaction with the faculty that I had listed. I was interested to work with, and so we first spoke, and they just asked me what my interests were, and they told me about what all the research, like what the research going on in their group is, and yeah, and then they mainly asked me about what scholarships I would be applying for, because again that is the major question in case of UK. So what they had actually told me to do is there are several department fellowships, or there are like fellowships that you get automatically considered for also by just submitting your application. But there are like a lot of them. So they had told me to give like check that there's a link which lists all of that, and then they told me to go through that and see the ones which apply to me. Like there's something known as a Felix scholarship or Felix whatever, but that specifically applies to Indian students. So there were scholarships like that where I would have had a greater chance of getting selected, and so they'd asked me to prepare a list and send it to them so that they would further see like give further emphasis on those scholarships for me, as they would be more easily accessible. And apart from that, that discussion was not more like, it wasn't an interview exactly, it was a discussion. After that, there was a departmental interview that I had, and this was the one which was the most extensive interview that I've given. So they asked me a lot of questions about my thesis project, like a lot of like small things like about experimental details and stuff like that, and then my general motivation about why I want to join that particular lab, and like what my background has been, and those kind of things. And another interview that I had was for the DTP in Cambridge that I told you about, the nanoscience and nanotechnology program. So in that I had like 3 interviews. It's a very like, it's a whole like process which is really organized and well put out. So each, like one person would ask you about your background and your previous research projects, another person just asks you about, like it could be something related to material science which you've never studied, but they don't like check how much you have studied or learned, but they check your logical reasoning or like critical thinking, because they would like give you the basic information that you would need to solve that problem, and then they would just ask you what would happen in such a situation. So it's not necessary that you should know everything beforehand, or you have to read up everything that you've learned in these past years. It's more like you should just be able to like think properly at that time and just answer to the best of whatever you know. And yeah, mostly like at least know what you have written in your, like what you submitted to them, like your SOP and CV thoroughly. Like you should not falter in any of the places that you've mentioned over there, because they can ask you any question related to that.
More questions? Jonak says that was very helpful. Thanks. I just have one point to make, which was also made in the math session by Puneet. Although Europe, the PhDs are shorter, and in general, they expect you to know enough before you start a PhD. Do not let yourself be the judge of whether or not you deserve a PhD position. You apply wherever you think you will do well, or wherever you think you are excited to learn about something. Whether you get the position or not comes later, because the place where I'm going to do my PhD has nothing to do with my master's thesis or my previous research experience. So you apply wherever you think you're interested. Yeah, I'm sure. The rest will be taken care of by the advisor, not you. So, okay. So, more questions?
The great thing about Europe is that it's free.
Exactly. You will understand this when you apply to the US. The great thing about Europe is it's free. Okay. We'll wait for like
If you have any other questions, you can always contact any of us, me, Shraddha, or Ajay. Even Sparsh couldn't make to this presentation. You can ask anything. Like for UK, he'll be for UK and Europe, both he'll be a good person to ask questions from.
Yeah, Sparsh, I think, has applied to a couple of places, like in, I think, Germany and Switzerland
Germany
also,
and
and UK also. So, I mean, you can contact him also if you have any questions.
Could the three of you put your email IDs in the chat?
Yep.
It was already there in the presentation also. Okay.
You know, we can maybe share the presentation also so that they get the links to that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we'll make that happen. We'll send an email or something. So, okay. Any more questions? Okay. Maybe not. So maybe we could end here then. So thanks a lot, Ajay, Kirti, and Shraddha. I'm sure the juniors have benefited a lot. Abhijit, you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, so this is just a request to all the people who attended that if you have any feedback regarding these sessions, please email to us
Yeah.
because we are in the process of. Has a question.
Aditi has a question.
Yeah, there is a question.
If I were to apply to some place where my thesis work is not that much related to my application areas, will I be considered by the advisors in Europe? Something I said, but maybe you could, any of you.
Maybe Shashank would like explain this.
Yeah,
It's
so
okay to talk about your experience.
it
Yeah.
Yeah,
completely
talk about
depends on the specific advisor. I'm sure that your application would be considered if the advisor is, like, let's say, willing to consider your application. In my case, I was considered for my application even though I did not have much experience. In case you're called for an interview, in that case they will ask you to talk more about what are the things you know and how may what you know be useful for your PhD. So do not be discouraged from applying. It's possible that some advisors don't want to interview you because you don't have the experience, but certainly there are other advisors who are interested to do that. So once you get selected for the interview, they will always ask you, like, what are the things you know, what did you do in your thesis, let's say. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah, in the other factors, for example, in my case, have done a lot of theory work related to the PhD that I had applied outside. So the position to which I have applied for is experimental one, but since the professor was expecting that someone would join who can handle theory for him as well, along with the experimental work that is already going on the group, he gave a try. He gave a try when I had applied to him. So this is also one way in which if you are not used to the work that is already happening in the group, still you will be able to manage an interview call where you can try your level best to convince the professor. So yeah, if we
Yeah.
have done theory, don't hesitate to apply for experimental positions as well if you don't have an experience prior. Even if the professor, it could be that the professor might be waiting for someone who would do theory. So yeah,
Just send a mail. So like there's no harm in like asking for any.
And another thing is, like, maybe in the email, like, even if your thesis isn't related to that, you can try to link it somehow if even minutely anything relates to it. Or even if it doesn't, like, there would have been some way how you found out about that field or how you got interested in that. So those are kind of things which you can mention in your email, like how you got interested in that, even if maybe your background doesn't directly relate to it. And if that, like, interests the professor, then they could, like, further take up your application.
Well, yeah, but so I have also a note to add that I mean, of course, I mean, all of you have said there's no harm in applying, but I would still, as a matter of practical advice, say that don't rely on Europe. Such cases do happen, but they are in minority. So do look for PhD positions in other places in case you want to work in something that's not related to your master's project. So don't rely on Europe entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think we are out of time, but the email IDs are in the chat. Please reach out to them with more questions.
Okay, yeah. So I'm
I'm very
stopping
happy that
recording.
you can stop.